This is the Cats Roundtable with John Catsimatidis.
Everywhere around the world, they're coming to America. Every time that flag's unfurled, they're coming to America.
Good morning, New York. This is the Cats Roundtable. John Catsimatidis here. And a special happy birthday today to my good friend Dennis Herman, a great New York City real estate mogul. With us today is Senator George Borrello from upstate New York, Governor David Paterson, Congresswoman Nicole Mayotakis, Randy Levine, the president of New York Yankees, Randy Mastro, the former first deputy mayor. What's going on with that budget? Congressman Mike Lawler, John Terrett on the Sox, Nicholas Tsakos, a Greek ship owner. And let's start off with Michael Stoller and the Real Estate Report.
Good morning. This is Mike Stoller for the Stoller Real Estate Report. What's happening in real estate today? You need a combination of debt, equity, just to figure out. You also need lawyers to figure out all of the changes and legislation taking place. So who are buying? Who is selling? I have today Jonathan Zamir, the managing partner at Keystone Equities. Thanks for being here.
Sure. Thank you for having me.
So what does Keystone Equities do?
Keystone Equities is a private equity and private credit platform. We started about 14 years ago, initially strictly focused on equity. And in the last 24 months, we've gotten increasingly active on the credit side. And that's more a function of where the market's played out and the ability to make what were historically equity-like returns with credit-like instruments and credit-like risk. So,
for my audience, give me an example.
Years ago, when we were more active looking at equity, we still do look at equity. You were generally targeting like a high-teen type of return for an opportunistic deal, and then obviously anywhere across the range from core to value add, the return threshold would get lower. But nowadays, with credit, just given the way spreads have moved, you have the ability to lever credit positions and earn what could be, north of a 15% return, but you're only coming into the cap stack up to like 75%. So your risk is much lower, but you're still hitting those return thresholds.
How are you doing those deals?
A lot of it's relationships, and a lot of it is creativity. The market is one where we have great relationships with a lot of the brokerage community and with various borrowers. Thank God over the years we've been fortunate to build a reputation where people know we're going to do what we say we're going to do. And it's been exciting. In the last 2 years, we've done a little over $600 million worth of transactions, and we're very busy right now. The team continues.
So there's always this big comment, people are buying debt. Talk to me about buying debt in Cross River.
Cross River was one transaction. We've bought a number of other loans. Ideally, there are two approaches when you're buying debt. One of them, I'd say, is a little more aggressive. We try to shy away from that, where you're going after the asset itself. The other one is when you're trying to either just clip a coupon or work things out. That's where we kind of lean in. So we've bought NPLs, but the intent of buying a non-performing loan in NPL has been to work things out. In the case of the Cross River portfolio, that was a bit different. That was a $220 million portfolio of loans that we acquired from the bank. It was a bit of a unique financially engineered transaction because what it gave the bank the ability to do was lower or I'd say soften their balance sheet and redeploy that capital into new loans. And for us, it was the opportunity to buy into what we thought were very good loans, great sponsors, low LTV. There was some recourse on some of the loans. So we felt really secure on those positions and still clip what we thought was a really accretive return. So,
now, this year you recently did a deal in Astoria. Tell me about that.
Sure. So a couple of weeks ago, we closed an $84 million lease-up loan. Great sponsor. They built very quickly, very efficiently, great product.
They built a rental?
Yes. They basically needed someone to bridge from, when you get a construction loan, the rate on that construction loan tends to be significantly higher than what you're getting once you've completed the project and once it's stabilized. The bridge comes in once the construction's been completed, essentially. So we came in right after they got their TCO, and we gave them a lower rate that gives them the ability and the time to lease up the asset. So
who's going to take you out?
It's a great question. It really depends on the borrower at that point. He can turn towards Freddie, Fannie type type of lenders, or he has a lot of optionality at that point, because once that's a stabilized asset, the pool of lenders kind of grows there.
So in today's time, what type of assets are you interested in, both as equity and as debt?
So the credit side I mentioned, where I think we try to focus our effort. The equity side's tougher. I think the market's just gotten increasingly efficient, and I think with AI, it continues to get more and more efficient. The only time that we're playing in equity these days is if it's opportunistic. And the reason is because the threshold for credit needs to be, we have to pass the threshold of the returns we're getting on credit in order to take the risk associated with equity. What we're seeing now for the first time is credit, the returns on credit is compressing, so that threshold's getting lower and equity is looking more interesting. So we are actually looking at more equity deals. But the line between equity and debt has blurred a lot ever since the market kind of reset. And, you know, if I buy a non-performing loan, an NPL, I would argue that might be an equity deal. You know, it's very different. People are coming in at a reset basis, and that tends to be where the credit has been. And that's why a lot of these banks are selling their notes, because the value just isn't where it used to be.
You're seeing more banks selling their notes?
We certainly have seen that. We saw it tighten for a little bit. I think this year is going to be an interesting one, because I read a recent article about how extending and working through some of those loans to kind of push off what's inevitable has worked favorably for the banks. And I agree with that, because rates have come down and values have come up. So I think the banks, by virtue of doing that, are able to recapture some of the value there, which has been beneficial for them. But at the end of the day, banks make money by lending. So if they can get out of those positions and try to put that money back out, there's a lot more value in there for them. So this year is going to be really interesting, but we certainly have our pulse on the market. Let's put it that way.
I think you definitely have the pulse on the market. You've built a nice business. I'm very proud of you, and I'd like to thank you for being here today.
I appreciate you so much. It's really great to be here and with a friend that's been there for so many years.
The Cats Roundtable.
On the phone with us, we have Nicholas Tsakos, a Greek ship owner, owner of one of the largest fleets of Greece, and he has a New York Stock Exchange company that is named TEN, T-E-N. And Nick Tsakos, tell us more about your company.
Well, thank you very much. It's great to be on. TEN has been public on the New York Stock Exchange since 2002. It's one of the largest energy carriers in the world. Greece, actually, 30% of the world's energy is transported on Greek ships, which I think is something that not many people know. So Greek shipping is significant, very significant in the world and global economy. TEN has been profitable in the majority. We only had 3 down years in that period of time. So even for a boxer, that's a good record. 22 knockouts and just 3 losses.
Now, tell us, that's a wonderful company, but tell us what's going on in the Strait of Hormuz. And I also want to know what's going on in the Red Sea.
Yes, this is where the action is. Right now, the Strait of Hormuz is really a blocked zone. It's very dangerous. We all have ships there. Every significant tanker, dry, and container company has vessels there. There are right now about 600 vessels blocked and trapped in that part of the world, of which 230 are tankers, are vessels like the ones we operate, and 20 of them are LNGs. So I would say today, 250 million barrels of world's energy are blocked within the straits. This means that this is the carrying capacity of about a week for the world, total world consumption. So it's a very, very big number. It's very similar like having 10 to 20% of the world's aviation fleet grounded and not being able to fly. And of course,
so in other words, at the Straits of Hormuz, you have all those boats almost in prison because they can't move.
Exactly. I think the the American expression is sitting ducks, and we're very, we have crew on them. Every ship has 20 to 30 crew members. The safety of our crew is very important to all of us. Today we had 3 more vessels being hit, as earlier in the morning out there. 25 vessels have been actually badly hit since the beginning of the war efforts. There are 10 tankers, 6 containers, 6 dry cargos, and then smaller supplying ships. So that's really quite a heavy amount of damage.
Has the United States government offered you insurance or an escort service by the Navy?
We are very closely communicating. We appreciate the efforts that have been made, but I think there is no way that we will, even with any escort, we're going to put our people in this danger. However, you mentioned the Red Sea before. The Red Sea about 2 weeks ago was also a no-go zone for major carriers and ourselves. However, with help from the U.S. Navy and other allied navies, including the Greek, I think this should be a good alternative in trying to get some of the oil which is trapped in there out through the Yambu port, which is a port that can take significant amount of crude export from that port. So I think so far we had the Houthis, which is the
Yes.
Houthis, which are a terrorist association in Somalia, but they are much easier to deal with if we have escorts from the navies. I think your point is very correct. We should focus right now in getting as much oil as possible with escorts and protection from the Red Sea rather than from the Straits.
Understood. So right now, how many ships do you have stuck in Hormuz?
Well, in Hormuz right now we have 6 vessels,
Yes.
which are 5 tankers and 1 container, and we're taking measures to protect our seafarers and our crew as much as possible.
Well, anything else you want to tell the American people?
Well, I think that all effort has been made for I think from shipping companies to make sure we are like the floating pipelines in this big business of energy distribution. Right now, I would say we have the forgotten part is the human factor that is on board, and at least it's good that people are thinking of this of our seafarers and their well-being as we speak, and make sure that we as a company, together with other companies, are making every effort to be able to keep the supply chain as much and non-disrupted as possible.
Well, thank you, Nicholas Chakos. Thank you so much for informing all the American people, and I'm sure you'll be available if we need, if anything different happens.
Yes, and thank you for giving us the chance, and looking forward to be able to ask any more questions, and hopefully we'll go to a much more peaceful and productive world very fast.
Thank you so much, and we'll catch up with you again real soon. I hope your people stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you for listening to the Cats Roundtable. We'll be right back right after this break.
It's crunch time at work, and you need to bring wings to your workday. Visit redbull.com/gettingitdone and answer a couple questions about your work style to get a Spotify customized playlist tuned to your productivity. Plus, score a can of Red Bull on us while you go from to-do to done. And remember, Red Bull gives you wings. Supplies are limited. Terms apply. Visit the website for more information.
Welcome back to the Cats Roundtable. Like every Sunday, Governor David Paterson. Governor, what do you have in mind this morning?
Well, there was an article that came through the AP on Thursday in which a company that was helping the United States target the areas that we wanted to hit in Iran, that their building has been disabled. And disabled was kind of a code word for the fact that apparently somebody used AI to stop all of the electronic activity from the building to the company. That opens up a door, and a couple of people spoke on the record about it, that as we ran over Iran in 12 minutes, as President Trump said. I mean, he's been really tongue-in-cheek about this whole thing for the last few days, but he's basically right that the important elements to Iran being in a war have been dismantled by the United States. But I think we've got to start thinking about the other ways that smaller countries can impede our progress and disable a lot of the technology that we developed.
That's true in technology, but the whole art of war has changed in the last 10 years. This drone situation is dangerous.
Exactly. It's a new technology that the war came before we've got it under control.
So what do we do?
We may not know exactly who put the technology in some of these different places, but we know who sponsored it. So I think there's no reason to let up on Iran or any of these other countries that have wreaked havoc in our midst. And I think that would open the door for a situation where we control the technology, not them.
But it seems like even the Ukraine has technology that's building like 10,000 drones a month.
It's amazing. Now, fortunately, we have a much better relationship with them, and fortunately, there are no secrets per se between us and them because, you know, countries work with you and then they're doing other things you don't know about. But I think this is just something for us to keep an eye on as the weeks and months progress, that it's not just Iran. We can take care of Iran, but it's also a whole lot of other interests antagonistic to our interests who are finding highly developed technical ways to impose their wishes on our reality.
New York City, we might have a problem. Moody's is starting to shake in their boots a little bit about New York City bonds. What do you think?
I think that's a real problem, and particularly for New York City. The state has, I wouldn't say other options as much as I would say other areas that they can utilize to try to mitigate a large budget. I was able to do it myself when I was there. Cities in a much more difficult situation. They are one step away from going on the list, as they say. And no one seems to be talking as if that's the case. Certainly not Mayor Mamdani. Governor Hochul has pointed it out. And I think that the legislative leaders know that this is going on. But it's something that they better get together and really work something out, or we could be sitting around in the middle of June wondering why the budget isn't passed.
What do you think of the state? You think they have things under control?
Well, it's interesting because Governor Hochul announced on Wednesday of this past week that we cannot make the payments that were agreed upon in legislation involving environmental justice and the right way to keep the environment safe. She admitted that New York will not have the money at that point to pay that off. Now, this was a good time for her to mention it because she's still got 3 or 4 years to deal with it, assuming that she gets reelected. But I think it was an honest assessment of what's actually going on, as opposed to, you know, when something is really not going to come due for 3 or 4 years and the executive says, well, we're working on it. You know, she didn't say we're working on it. She said, as of right now, we can't pay it. So I thought that was, real honest assessment of the situation. But inevitably, the Republicans and the Democrats, they're the ones that passed the legislation in the first place and was signed by the governor at that time. They're going to have to recognize that some sacrifices need to be made. I wasn't always very successful getting sacrifices out of the legislature, and when something like this comes up, Governor Hochul or whoever's governor at that time may face that same problem.
David Patterson, thank you so much for coming on, and God bless you, God bless America, and thank you for continuing to stay involved and giving people your feelings.
Well, thank you, John.
The Cats Roundtable.
With us today is Congresswoman Nicole Maliotakis, and well, Nicole, give us what's on your mind on a Sunday morning.
You know, this week we were with President Trump, and President Trump spoke to our Republican conference and reiterated his desire to pass the Save America Act, which is critical legislation to safeguard our elections. And vast majority of Americans agree. It's upwards of 85% of Americans who say that they want to have voter ID in our elections. And so, you know, we passed this bill out of the House, and we continue to demand that the Senate find a way to bring it up for a vote, because everyone should know where their elected official, where their senator stands on this important bill. And, John, just to give you an example of why we need this, well, states like New York don't have voter ID. And not only that, they don't have voter ID, but they passed laws like the green light law that automatically send your driver's license application to roll you to vote unless you opt out. Now, with them giving illegal immigrants driver's licenses that have no differentiation, by the way, if you look at the driver's license, it's the exact same. There's nothing that says that this person is a citizen or not. They go and forward that application unless the person says that they're not eligible to vote and they're not a citizen. But, you know, you have to assume not everyone's going to understand English that thoroughly. Number two, you have to that they understand the legal disclaimers on that document. And so, you know, I had brought this up when we debated that legislation. Why is there an automatic enrollment? Why is there not an opt-in, or at least that would be necessary? Lastly, they shouldn't be doing it at all if they're going to allow illegal immigrants and non-citizens to have driver's licenses in the state. And that is why a real ID, why a passport is necessary to safeguard America's elections.
But why? I don't understand why the Democratic Congress people are not voting for it.
Well, look, what I will say, John, is this is not the first time we don't see Democrats vote for good government policy, good election integrity measures. But they also tried, as you recall, to implement non-citizen voting in New York City. Now, this is something myself, Borough President Vito Fossella, other Republicans from New York City, and some Democrats sued to stop. I was actually a lead plaintiff in that lawsuit with my mother, who is a Cuban refugee. We successfully did stop that law from taking effect. But again, it's another policy that the Democrats tried to pass. And, you know, they tried to do other things, whether it's same-day voter registration, no excuse absentee ballots. They've passed or tried to pass so many different things that would actually hinder the integrity of our elections and allow for cheating to take place. And so, you know, I think that whenever we're focused on preserving our elections, making sure only U.S. citizens can vote, those are good measures that are supported vastly by the American people.
I understand the polls that they did, 90% of Republicans and 70% of Democrats. I mean, what is the argument? And, you know, they say, well, the Democrats are calling the Republicans racists because they're asking for ID.
Yeah, and how insulting is that, John? I mean, what they're basically saying, the Democrats, is that minorities are not smart enough to be able to obtain an ID, that they don't know how to obtain an ID. That's what they're saying, and it's horrific that they're saying that. And by the way, I should say the minority groups, overwhelming, it's like 70-80% support voter ID. So this is just nonsense, the claims that the Democrats are making. As you say, you need ID to board a plane, to rent a car, to buy beer, to buy cigarettes, to go into a hotel room to check in. You know, we use voter ID, by the way, in Congress. I need a photo ID to vote in the House of Representatives. So why is it okay to vote in the House of Representatives and not for the American people to elect our president, to elect our Congress and our U.S. Senate? There's no excuse for it, and the American people know it, and they know that the Democrats are the ones that are blocking this from becoming the law of the land. And it's absolutely shameful and unfortunate, but we're going to continue to push ahead and fight for the integrity of our elections. And hopefully, we win some of these battles. Like we said, we won the redistricting the other day to preserve our map when Democrats tried to tilt the scale and steal our congressional seat on Staten Island and Brooklyn. We won, and we stopped non-citizens from voting in New York City's elections. Every now and then, the good guy wins. Actually, we voted to stop political gerrymandering in the state by public referendum. So we've done all these things. And we're going to continue to fight to preserve the elections where we can. But people need to call their U.S. senators and demand that they vote for the Save America Act.
Thank you so much for coming on this Sunday morning, and thank you so much.
Thank you, John.
Thank you for listening to the Cats Roundtable. We'll be right back right after this break. Welcome back to the Cats Roundtable. With us today is Congressman Lawler. You had some interesting meetings this week, Congressman, and tell us how you really feel, because everybody is all excited between Iran, excited about domestic stuff, excited about energy policy in our state.
Well, obviously the terrorist attack in New York City last week and the potential devastation that could have been wrought, mass casualties had those bombs detonated from the ISIS-inspired radical Islamic terrorists in our city certainly is of grave concern. The NYPD acted heroically, as they always do, and were able to ensure everybody's safety. But it really, raises the issue of the Department of Homeland Security and the need to ensure that it is fully funded, and for Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries to stop this political nonsense of keeping the department shut down. It is creating havoc across the country at airports with TSA agents not being paid, our Coast Guard, which right now, we have Coast Guard officers off the coast of Iran. You have the Secret Service, which obviously is tasked with protecting the president, among other dignitaries. And you look at FEMA, disasters that they have to deal with on a given day. So the time for this nonsense has come to stop, and I think it's imperative that we get the department fully funded this week.
The facts are that, let's take the TSA, and I spoke to a few other people about it. Every time you buy an airline ticket, you pay like $5.60 towards the TSA. This money is already paid by the consumer. How come they're not turning it over?
There's such a challenge here. Obviously, the airlines, contribute towards some of the costs associated with running these airports and managing it. But overall, on the whole here, I mean, this department, Homeland Security, which was created in the aftermath of 9/11 and really was focused on coordinating the effort across the country to ensure the safety of the homeland, and that includes TSA, obviously, with airport screenings, to make sure that, we don't have terrorists getting on these flights. This is vital, and there shouldn't even be a question of funding this. There shouldn't even be a question of making sure that these hardworking TSA agents are being paid. And this is the second time in a matter of months that Chuck Schumer has plunged us into a shutdown that is impacting the ability of Americans to travel, that's impacting the ability of these TSA agents to put food on their table and provide for their families. So it needs to stop to make sure that the funding is fully there and that the department is fully operational, especially given the situation in the Middle East and the heightened risk of terrorist attacks here at home.
Where do you think that money is from the TSA?
I'd have to look into that more specifically as to where the funding goes from that transfer from the airline companies.
Because if the consumer already paid and they have to wait online for 3 hours, somebody, if in New York State, if I collect the sales tax from the consumer and I don't turn it over, I can go to jail.
Well, of course, but here you have a situation where the department isn't even funded, so it's not able to pay out these agents. It's not. But
the money is coming in.
As payroll.
But the money is coming in.
Sure, there's money being collected, but ultimately, that's an accounting issue when the money is transferred, et cetera. But the fact is, they cannot even process payroll because the department is not funded. It's shut down. So the TSA agents are not being paid directly, and that is a fundamental problem here.
What else you want to talk about this morning?
Just a little over a week ago, I had Secretary of Energy Chris Wright visit my district in the Hudson Valley, and we visited Indian Point. And one of the things that we discussed was rebuilding and reopening the power plant there. It never should have been shut down. It was safe. It was clean. It was reliable. We've seen since the announcement of Indian Point shutdown, utility rates in New York have skyrocketed 58% since 2019. You see in Michigan, Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer has announced the reopening of the Palisades nuclear power plant. They're going to be reopening it the end of May of this year, and that's going to produce over a gigawatt of power. Indian Point can produce upwards of 2.4 gigawatts of power, which would be vital to New York.
It is crazy that we closed it. Do you know that Albany, they want all our new buildings to be all electric, and meanwhile we don't have any electricity?
It's insane. There's not enough solar panels and wind turbines to produce the level of electricity that they're talking about. 70% of electricity nationwide is generated by natural gas. You need natural gas. You need nuclear power. We need solar. We need wind. But you need to do an all-of-the-above approach. It's why we're working on permitting reform down in Washington. But New York State needs to change its policies. It needs to recognize that what they tried to do is disastrous to the consumer. It has not made the grid cleaner. In fact, it is dirtier since Indian Point shut down, and cost has risen exponentially. So we need to reverse course. We need nuclear. We need natural gas. The governor and the legislature need to act.
Congressman Lawler, thank you so much for coming on this Sunday morning, and we'll catch up again real soon.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it.
So good, so good, so good.
New markdowns up to 70% off are at Nordstrom Rack stores now. And that means so many new reasons to rack.
Because I always find something amazing. Just so many good brands.
Because there's always something new.
Join the Nordy Club to unlock exclusive discounts, shop new arrivals first, and more. Plus, buy online and pick up at your favorite Rack store for free. Great brands, great prices. That's why you rack.
Get in the game with the college-branded Venmo debit card. Wreck your team with every tap and earn up to 5% cash back with Venmo Stash, a new rewards program from Venmo. No monthly fee, no minimum balance, just school pride and spending power. Get in the game and sign up for the Venmo debit card at venmo.com/collegecard. The Venmo MasterCard is issued by the Bancorp Bank N.A. Select schools available. Venmo Stash terms and exclusions apply at venmo.me/stash terms. Max $100 cash back per month.
When you want your spring break to feel like... and your kids' pool day to feel like... and your hotel bed to feel like... ooh, and room service to feel like... because at Hilton, hospitality feels like...
Your cabana's ready. Would you like fresh towels?
It matters where you stay. Book now at Hilton.com. Hilton, for the stay.
The Cats Roundtable.
With us today is Senator George Borrello from Chautauqua County in upstate New York. George Borrello, what's up today?
Well, we had a tragic accident last August near Batavia, New York, in Genesee County, and it was a New York City-based tour bus that was carrying Chinese tourists. And the bus ended up rolling over, and tragically 5 people died, along with 49 people that were injured. This was all over the news back then. But this driver, who they had a difficult time locating to actually hold him accountable for this, for what happened here, is being charged with 5 counts of manslaughter. And in Genesee County Court, the district attorney, they had to provide an interpreter in Mandarin Chinese because he could not speak or understand English at all. What was very concerning about this is that he was issued a commercial driver's license by New York State. This is a license that everyone has to get that transports people, that transports hazardous materials and semi-trucks. And this is normally a very stringent process to get trained and licensed by New York State so you can drive 70,000-pound vehicles that have, in some cases, dangerous chemicals in it. We do not know how someone who cannot speak English was able to get this New York State commercial driver's license, the CDL license. And it's very, very concerning. You've seen this happen, across the country. The vast majority of these questionable CDL licenses are issued in New York and California. We've had tragedies here in New York. You saw, I believe it was Florida, where a non-citizen driver killed someone because he made an illegal U-turn in the middle of a road. And this is something that has to be investigated. It's causing deaths and injuries across this country, but it's very concentrated as to where these illegitimate CDL licenses are coming from, primarily New York and California.
I mean, that is mind-boggling that they allow people that don't speak English, can't read a sign, to be driving a truck that weighs 70,000 pounds at 70 miles an hour, which is, I mean, can kill people.
Absolutely. And, the people that want to shamelessly defend this will point to the green light law. The green light law was something that was passed and signed by Andrew Cuomo that allowed non-citizens, to get driver's licenses. Specifically, commercial driver's licenses were exempt from the green light law, and that's the most concerning part. So that they won't use this excuse that we allow non-citizens, but you still have to pass the basic test. You still have to pass every single test when it comes to being able to speak and understand English so that you can read road signs. But in the case of a commercial driver's license, that is an even higher threshold that has to be reached, including competency.
So I'm asking a simple question. Did somebody in the system give permission for the clerk to give out those licenses, or is the clerk that stupid?
Well, I would appear that there is definitely some kind of, I would call it a conspiracy. The fact that for political reasons, people are passing out CDL license to unqualified drivers. Now, it probably starts with some kind of a fraudulent CDL school, a commercial driver's license school that's fraudulent, that's just handing out certificates to people. But it's up to New York State DMV to determine whether or not these people are actually qualified. And if they can't speak in English and they can't understand the forms they're supposed to be signing and they cannot read roadsides, then they should absolutely not be issued a CDL license. So there's no doubt that New York State, for political reasons, are passing out these licenses to clearly unqualified people.
Anything else you want to tell our listening audience this Sunday morning?
Well, we just had this week in Albany the Senate and Assembly one-house budgets drop. This is basically the start of the negotiations to adopt a final budget here in Albany. And after the governor put a record-breaking budget out at $260 billion, that wasn't good enough for my Senate Democrat colleagues. They dropped a bill that adds an additional 11% on top of last year's adopted budget and is giving authority to Mayor Mamdani to raise taxes and cause more pain in New York City, including a surcharge on property taxes, as well as increases on corporate taxes and business taxes, and which will drive more people out of New York City and New York State, employers, families, and the ripple effect of these tax increases are going to result in cost increases that will touch every single New Yorker at every level of income. So this is just to satisfy this radical socialist agenda that Mayor Mamdani is pushing, and it will be to the detriment, once again, of the people of New York City and New York State.
Senator Borrello, thank you so much for coming on this Sunday morning.
Thank you as well.
Thank you for listening to the Cats Roundtable. We'll be right back right after this break. Welcome back to the Cats Roundtable. With us today is Randy Mastro, former First Deputy Mayor, off to do new ventures. And tell us, how does it feel not to be running the entire city right now?
Well, John, first of all, I've returned to my first love, the practice of law, and I'm now a partner at Deckard firm. So I'm very proud and honored to have joined their partnership. How does it feel not to be helping to run the city right now? It doesn't feel good, John, because I think that the city, in a lot of respects, isn't doing well and could be doing much better. The mayor is, learning on the job, but some of the mistakes are just rookie mistakes, creating an atmosphere of crisis around the city budget because he's trying to force tax increases on the wealthiest New Yorkers and on corporations and property taxes. So he created a crisis-like atmosphere around the city budget. And that led to Moody's downgrading the city's bond rating, the first negative bond rating since COVID. And that was, an unforced error because the city isn't in crisis. Its budget isn't in crisis. The fact that he wants to spend 11 to 12 billion more and generate higher taxes to pay for it doesn't mean the city is in a crisis. But unfortunately, it's an unforced error where now, with a revered bond rating agency like Moody's downgrading us, giving us a negative rating, that means it will cost more for capital and more to be able to bond projects, more to be able to build the affordable housing he says he wants to build. We shouldn't be raising taxes. That's bad for the local economy. But we also shouldn't be giving independent rating agencies the impression that we have such severe problems they should be downgrading us, so it's harder for us to do the capital projects our great city needs.
And I think the revenues are still coming in. I think a lot of people love the city. I think people are still building buildings. I mean, there's got to be some adjustments in some of the regulations and some of the climate controls laws, and where they're mandating that we have to build electric buildings. And guess what? We don't have enough electricity.
We have to focus, and this is really more at a state level, although locally we passed extreme laws that I was part of challenging in private practice previously, extreme laws about energy consumption that uniquely disadvantage businesses and property owners. But leaving that aside, we have to find solutions to get our energy costs in check. But it's also a question, John, of, when you're mayor, you have to make tough choices. You can't fund every program you'd like to fund just because you think it would be a nice program to have. You have to live within your means and fund that which you can afford to fund. Unfortunately, what we have with a new, inexperienced mayor is he wants to fund every one of his priorities and sets the budget at that level. And at the same time, to try and force tax increases, he underestimated the revenues we're likely to have. We're financial capital of the world. Wall Street fuels our local economy, and except for the hiccup more recently because of our military involvement in Iran, we are still having a strong year on Wall Street, and that usually yields many billions more in revenue by the end of the year. So he's starting to acknowledge that's likely to happen, but he still has created this atmosphere as if the city is in some kind of budget crisis when it isn't. You don't spend on every program you like. Spend on what we can afford so that you don't have to start doing things like raising taxes, which actually is bad for the economy and not a good idea for New York, number one. Number two, don't raid our reserves. We had historically high reserves in our administration, and now he's talking about raiding those reserves. These are all bad ideas.
So what's happening is by saying that they're short money, et cetera, and raiding the reserves, is that what made Moody's nervous?
I think that contributed to making Moody's nervous. What made Moody's the most nervous was a new mayor who came in and said he wanted to raise the total operating expense budget from around 115 to 116 billion to 127 billion. That's 11 to 12 billion more in expense. How did he say we were going to pay for it? Well, first he said our revenues were not going to be as high as people projected, so the gap was a huge gap. Then he had to admit, well, maybe the revenues will actually be higher, so that closed some of it, but he decided to close another part of the gap to raid our reserves. And those reserves, which were at historic highs, they're there for a reason, to protect the city in a real crisis. So when a rating agency looks at all of this, it doesn't instill a lot of confidence in rating agencies. And unfortunately, that has collateral consequences because your bond ratings are how you fund so many capital projects. You bond the projects, and it affects what you have to pay to bond. That's going to hurt the city, especially in an administration that says it wants to do even more affordable housing. You do that with capital funding.
Well, Randy, President Trump will give him all the money he needs for affordable housing, but I think it's going to be contingent on the mayor has to do the right thing for the city of New York.
Well, John, I think one of the things that the new mayor has done better than I expected, and it's a sharp departure from the harsh rhetoric he used on the campaign trail, that he was the only one who would stand up to the president. He's actually tried to open lines of communication and get benefits for the city out of that. And that's a smart thing to do. You have to work with your partners in government, even if you don't like them or they have a different ideology. Now, John, you know President Trump a lot better than I do. But I don't think, and I don't think anybody thinks, that President Trump thinks raising taxes is a good idea. That's just not the philosophy of his administration. But yet that seems to be the centerpiece of the Mondani administration.
Yes. Well, Randy Mastro, thank you for coming on this Sunday morning, and let's catch up again real soon. And congratulations on your new law firm. The name of the firm is
Deckert. It's a 150-year-old firm, the pride of Philadelphia, now a major national, international firm, and I'm really proud and honored to be joining its partnership.
Congratulations, and we'll catch up again real soon.
Thank you, John.
LifeLock, how can I help?
The IRS said I filed my return, but I haven't.
1 in 4 tax-paying Americans has paid the price of identity fraud.
What do I do?
My refund, though.
I'm freaking out.
Don't worry, I can fix this.
LifeLock fixes identity theft guaranteed and gets your money back with up to $3 million in coverage.
I'm so relieved.
No problem. I'll be with you every step of the way.
1 in 4 was a fraud-paying American. Not anymore. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
The Cats Roundtable.
Well, like every Sunday morning, we get a report from John Terrett of how the markets are doing. Is our 401k plan doing well, or are we suffering? John Terrett, what the heck is going on?
It's best not to look at your 401ks, not this weekend, that's for sure. The week on Wall Street dominated by oil prices, with Brent and WTI flirting with $100 a barrel. We know it will come down when President Trump decides to end the war. And we know we had about 4 years of very high oil prices with Joe Biden, and this could just be a month of high oil prices. I quoted you on the news last week saying that, and it's absolutely true. But the problem is everything hangs on the Strait of Hormuz. Now, President Trump is offering insurance and naval escorts for vessels going through the strait, but the big companies are going the long way around at the moment. Then also last week we had Mojtaba Khamenei, who's the new supreme leader. He didn't do it on video. He didn't do it with any sound. He had a TV anchor read his words, but he said the strait must remain closed. That's a bit worrying. Pete Hegseth, the war secretary, said this week no need to worry about the oil supply. And, of course, the IAEA basically released 4,000 barrels of oil onto the market. Didn't make much difference on the oil price because it's only about 11% of the 20% that we're missing that normally goes through the Strait of Hormuz. President Trump saying there's nothing left to bomb in Iran now, hinting the war may end within a week or so. So no wonder people on Wall Street are confused and on edge. The Dow, Nasdaq, and S&P didn't do much on Friday, and who can blame investors because they don't want to be caught long going over this weekend because, of course, so much has happened and could happen before they get back to work on Monday morning. Company news, Dick's Sporting Goods beat with its earnings, but they're wrestling with the takeover of Foot Locker. Kohl's, question about the recovery of that department store chain. They say their customers want more value and they're struggling to provide it. Live Nation, the ticket company, settled with the Department of Justice for $200 million in an antitrust case.
$200 million? My God.
It's nothing.
My God. How much did they get an advantage of it?
Well, it's very interesting that you should say that, because some of the states are not happy about this settlement with the DOJ. They're not happy at all. And on Friday, there was a report that the bosses of Live Nation have been caught saying that they're basically robbing ticket buyers blind. It's a very unfortunate situation. Live Nation and Ticketmaster, the two companies, are known as the world's most disliked ticket providers. In the crypto world, the Clarity Act coming to fruition. Looks like everyone's going to be a little disappointed when they finally see the final version, when they write it up. And so to the week ahead, John Thune is going to bring the SAVE Act to the floor of the Senate this week, he says. Not sure whether he has the votes. Of course, Tuesday is St. Patrick's Day. The Taoiseach, or the Prime Minister of Ireland, Michael Martin, is coming to the White House. He has $6.1 billion of inward investment in the U.S. in his back pocket, we're told, according to the Wall Street Journal. And, of course, the Fed meets on Tuesday and Wednesday. No movement is expected when they make their decision on Wednesday afternoon Eastern Time. And President Trump last week, of course, calling on Jerome Too Late Powell to cut interest rates now and not wait until Tuesday or Wednesday. John.
Well, thank you so much for calling in this Sunday morning. And let's pray for a 401k plan does better next week.
Yeah, best not to look. That's my advice. Just don't go there. Go somewhere else. Thank you, John.
We have a special guest this morning. We have my friend Randy Levine, who's president of the New York Yankees, and President Trump has given them a great job in the last week or so. And Randy Levine, congratulations, and I hope you can fix things.
Hey, John, it's always great to be with you. Thank you. You know, the great job is college sports. I understand it's a mess. And you got the new job of fixing college sports. It is a mess, and it's great to be with you. So let me just explain why it's a mess. Why it's a mess is these are college athletes who are going to school, and you know they need to get an education. But what's happened recently is that it's turned into not really priority of getting an education, but paying athletes as if they were professionals. And the end result of that is you have all these universities who are losing an incredible amount of money, and as a result, they have to take that money from study of academia, from their endowments, and give it to athletics. Or they're like Rutgers last week showed they lost $95 million. And to make it up, a portion of it, they had to charge students fees. States are getting involved with it. They're providing, tax relief, NIL, which is name, image, and likeness for students, aren't taxable in order to give an advantage to come to a certain university. Different rules everywhere. So it's a Wild West show. That what's happening is, as one very respectable athletic director of a great university told me, they're bleeding money so much that you could have like a savings and loan crisis. So what we're trying to do is fix it. Before I took this job, everybody was saying how bad it was and falling worse and worse. They've been trying to deal with this in Congress for many, many years. And everybody said the only person who can solve this is President Trump. So he asked us to convene this advisory group, which consists of college presidents, athletic directors, the media, and professional sports people such as me who've dealt with a lot of these issues to try and confront it. So that's where we are.
Now, the other problem is that I was told is how do small colleges compete with large colleges?
Right now, they can't. In fact, the end result of all of this is money is going to basically football and men's football and basketball, and as a result, small colleges or medium colleges can't compete. But the worst part is women's sports, Olympic sports, non-revenue sports are being cut because what's happening is there's just not enough money to go around. So, one of the Yankee players, a very good player, who went to a great university, actually told me this story, that he's been asked as an alumni, and he has given a bunch of money to name, image, and likeness, a 10th-string quarterback who transferred after 4 months, and a friend of his daughter, who is a potential Olympic rower on the rowing team, lost her scholarship and actually had to go take out a college loan. That's a bad situation. It shouldn't be that way.
What year did it start? Did college kids start getting paid? How long ago has it been?
It started about 5-6 years ago. Basically, look, college kids, for many, many years, universities exploited college kids. They used the image and likeness of college athletes and profited. So nobody disagrees that college athletes are entitled to payment compensation for their image and likeness. The problem is it's gotten out of control in order to do that. I mean, it's, in effect, crazy the amount of money that's being raised. And, you have a situation, John. You went, college. You're supposed to go to college 4 or 5 years, get an education, get a scholarship. You have guys in college now who are in there for 7 years, and they're getting paid a lot of money, more money than if they would have gone into professional sports. So this all started about 5-6 years ago. There was a ton of litigation, and it's totally expired, gotten crazy about 3 years ago.
Randy Levine, it's a challenge, but it needs fixing, and Randy Levine, you could do it.
Thanks, John. It's always great to be with you. I'm always here. Thank you.
Thank you for coming on this Sunday morning, and let's talk again real soon.
All the best. Take care. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us for the Cats Roundtable Local Edition, the #1 show on Sunday mornings in New York. Keep listening to us for the Cats Roundtable National Edition between 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock, so we'll be back to you in a few minutes after the news.